Morning, everyone. Welcome to my teaching learning sessions, and we continue with our introduction to social psychology. We have completed what is aggression in the unit which was last, which was Unit 6. To continue with Unit 6 and Block 4, we now talk about when aggression is an overt and a covert reaction both in an individual. That is, you can see an individual getting aggressive not only overtly, which is something which is observable in terms of verbal, physical aggression, but there are aggression which gets pent up in individuals and it get leads to hostility, which could be a pre-planned, schemed harm which is done on the other individuals or a community or probably or a caste, creed, or religion. So aggression comes in various forms. We need to know that how there are strategies that could reduce aggression. Aggression, according to Sigmund Freud, stated was one of the first schemas that he found out. One of those first strategies that he found out was catharsis. Psychoanalytical therapy of Sigmund Freud stated that we have unconscious wishes and desires that leads to abnormal behavior. And catharsis was one of a way and a strategy in his psychoanalytical therapy to vent out emotions. Similarly, he stated that this could be used as one of the strategies to reduce aggression in human behavior. So, humans that experience aggression as their coping mechanism, aggression as their ways of behaviors in maximum situation, can use catharsis, which is venting out the pent up emotion and release that emotion at the time of tension. So, in psychotherapy, this principle of catharsis is very much used nowadays. It is everybody's, when everybody's experiences get pent up, we should use catharsis to minimize aggression of emotions, of feelings, of experiences that we've had, so that any outward, that is overt display of aggression will not take place. Everyone in day-to-day life must have found that mild aggression and feelings of anguish are expressed individuals feel way too relieved, and otherwise it leads to anxiety if it kept pented up. A reason that we all have confidence in our life, that we keep telling our day-to-day crises, problems, that is also a form of catharsis. If that venting out of emotion does not take place in our day-to-day life, that would lead to anxiety, that would lead to a pent-up aggression for somebody, and then it will come out in the form of violence or come in the form of higher degree of aggression. Another way that we can reduce aggression starts from the time a child is born, which is our good parental models. We need to be role model good values, normal models to children. Parenting skills needs to be one of the best ways to reduce aggression in our children. So parents should try their best not to quarrel in front of their children, which is not to fight in front of their children. Usually what happens is at times that we are fighting, our children are observing our ways of conversation, our harsh ways of conversation, our ways of probably using curse word, our ways of throwing things, banging on the doors. Such quarrelsome attitude and such behaviors are observed by children and thus are adapted and imitated by children equally. So parents should try to give the best models and best role models for children to imitate, because the first kind of observational learning that happens with children is imitation. They should try, not preach, but become role models in front of them. Also, another way that we can reduce aggression is non reinforcing the action which are not good. So, one of the best ways is do not reinforce action which are actually aggressive. At times our children come home and give us experiences like, I had a fight with my friend and I also gave him equally in terms of physical aggression the way he gave me. So, what do we say to such actions of our children? Very good, you defended yourself, you should have been harder. No, we should not reinforce such action. We should make sure that we should not tell them that this was a good response to any second individual's behavior. We should tell them to find out ways to vent and to find a confidant, to be a role model in aggressive situation. So best way is do not reinforce aggressive behavior in any way. Not even milder behavior should be reinforced. Otherwise, the child will learn that every situation which involves him defending himself will require aggressive activities, hostile actions, and aggression. So, if aggressive behavior is very mildly penalized, it will be non-reinforcive, which is if you actually punish the child for doing something which was not incorrect and giving them the right ways of dealing with the situation. That would lead to non-reinforcement of their actions which are aggressive. A lot of parents do that, when their children are having a huge fight in school and they come back and tell their laurels that I found, had a fight with my friend and I equally gave him as hard that he was giving it to me. No, we should be mildly punishing such actions and such verbal description of children so that they understand that aggression is no form of response to anybody. So catharsis is one of the best way that we use in our day-to-day life today, which is venting out of feelings, your anguish, your sense of defeat, jealousy. This should be done, else it will lead to anxiety and obviously a bigger display of aggression later. Good parental role models, parents should try not fight, not quarrel in front of children. They should even make sure that any sort of bad behavior which could be replicated by children, is restricted in front of their children. And another one is non-reinforcing action, which is we should not be reinforcing any sort of actions in which children displays any sort of aggressive behavior, no matter it's an overt aggression or a covert. On the picture on the right, you can see that there are other ways that we can reduce aggression. First is training children in social skills, telling them the ways of greeting, telling them the milder ways of responding to aggressive situation, teaching social scenarios where they should act as role models rather than act as aggressive models. And one of another way is have cognitive strategies. Cognitive strategies that we are going to talk about is next for us, which is that we come down to when we talk about cognitive strategies are argumenting the aggressive thoughts and breaking that entire cycle. So how does cognitive strategies work, which is the strategies of thinking, reasoning a situation, problem solving a situation, which is not fighting but arguing the entire scenario which is of aggressive thought and aggressive action, and break down that cycle of any overt expression. I'll give you an example for this. For example, we have two of our mates, two of our friends fighting in front of us. At times, what do? We do not stop the fight, but enjoy the fight by aggravating one of our friends and telling them and enjoying the entire scene. What do you do to them? You break down the argument of aggression, which is allow them to see what is the problem that they are looking forward to. So we should do what in between? We should solve problems. We should analyze the situation. We should synthesize the situation and come to simpler form of behaviors and actions and thoughts, which will break down the overt expression of aggression. And one of the simple way to do one of the simple way to reduce this is when the intentions are clear and you are very genuine. So you need not be very biased when you're interacting with someone who's very aggressive. You can only do it when you have a genuine intent, which is apologies are one of the best cognitive strategies so to solve an aggressive problem. Argumentation is also one of the most simplest way. Self-control and self-regulation. Self-regulation is observation of your own behavior and monitoring your own behavior. So let's take an example when you have a verbal fight with somebody and somebody is using a curse word against you. What do? We get very aggressive and we revert with the same curse word. What do we need to do? We need to practice self regulation. You need to observe your own behavior, observe and monitor. This is not the kind of behavior that I put out. I need to break this down, understand the problem, and come to a solution, which is problem solving, a cognitive strategy. Another ways that we can, along with self regulation, could be self control. Self control is delaying the gratification. Delaying gratification is that urge to fight, wait, delay it, delay that satisfaction of fighting. That will lead to another successful cognitive strategy, which is self control. But these strategies only work when your intentions are very clear, you have an understanding of the situation, and you're very genuinely looking forward to solve the problem. Another way of reducing aggression could be in our day to day life is make sure there are children and you have non aggressive models around you. You have people, you have company, you have subordinates, you have elders who are non provocative, who are actually role models in terms of not looking forward to have aggressive and overt behaviors and responses as aggression, but looks forward to solve problems, not fight. So, for at least adults, we should have models which are not aggressive, models which are very calm, composed, and resolution and solution seeking people. For children, we should make sure that they should not indulge in television watching, which is very, very high on aggression. We should not allow them play video games, which is very high on adrenaline rush and very aggressive in nature. That will lead to give them very aggressive models in life. So this will lead to better observation of non-aggressive models. So this is another way of reducing aggression. Let's move to the next topic that we have is bullying. Bullying is also an aggressive behavior. At times children who are bullying feel that no, it's not an aggressive behavior, it's just, teasing people. No. Bullying is also an aggressive behavior in which there is an imbalance of power and strength. So you realize why people are bullying. People are bullying us because they want to exert power and pressure on people who are of lesser strength. So this is also called scapegoating. So when we talk about scapegoating is, when we exert power, when we put the blame on people who are of lesser strength, lesser name. So bullying is also similarly, we do it to exert our power, see our strength among people, and it could be done in various forms. It could be by teasing, name calling, taunting people, kicking people, physical, that is like a physical bullying, hitting people, maliciously, teasing with their names or just simply teasing them could be a direct form of bullying. And there are other indirect form of bullying which is very, very prevalent in nowadays, which I feel everyone should be very aware of, which is cyberbullying. This is one of the most riskiest form of bullying and aggressive behavior, which exerts pressure on you, exerts so much of strength on you that you depend on that cyber, controlling aspect that you have in your life. Then there are other in terms of his rumor spreading. We should make sure that we do not spread rumors against other people. Social exclusion, which is discarding people from a social group, and manipulation of friendships, something which is very subtle. We don't get to know of this, which is indirect form of bullying, which is we end up manipulating our friends for our own benefits and our own vision and our goals. So that is manipulation of friendships. That is bullying, which is direct and indirect form, and also a form of aggression that we should apprise ourselves with. Then, what can cause bullying? See, causes of bullying can be multiple. We could go back to the ways of reducing bullying. Causes could be having aggressive models. Children are having aggressive models throughout their lifestyles. They've had parents, they have friends, they have indulged in activities which is very aggressive in nature. Then psychologists have also proved that aggressive behavior is result of triggered behaviors caused because of the deprivation of specific drives, needs, emotional needs, and also social needs. So at times, why aggression is coming into play? Aggression is coming into play because of some people being deprived of social needs, emotional needs. Also, when these needs are not solved, we throw aggression onto people that we feel we can control, people that we can feel we exert our power and strength. Also, this phenomena is called frustration aggression, which was given by Dollard and Miller, and this hypothesis was taken forward by Kowalski and Weston in 2011. So Weston stated that this frustration aggression hypothesis could be one reason that why are we leading to aggression, why our behavior is filled with aggression. We are so frustrated with activities and things that has happened in our life that we cope up with it by throwing aggression on other people. Frustration aggression hypothesis. So you need to know people who are bullying has a lack in themselves. They're running out of some social needs, they're running out of some emotional needs that they have been deprived in their early times. Also, oddly, it's been stated that traits can create bullies. Also, traits like personality characteristics can also create bullies. So, at times, it's an individual's personality that leads to bullying. The difference between in behavior, that is, victim usually, at times, whenever a person is getting bullied and a person who's bullying, there's a large difference between the two. The one who's the victim is, internalizing his or her problem, always makes sure that he or she is keeping quiet, accepting all the bullying which is coming, while the bully is acting aggressive, teasing, or exerting its power, making sure that you are now deprived of something that they were deprived of in the earlier times. So this was given by Deakin at 2011. So this tells us what could be the cause of bullying. Cause could be having wrong role models. Psychologists have stated that major cause is deprivation of your needs, which is social needs, physiological needs, psychological needs, which leads to frustration aggression hypothesis in the person who's bullying. So these are the causes that we have, and this is how bullying looks to us. Teasing indirectly, having friends which are manipulating you, social exclusion, kicking you out of a social group. We should make sure that we should not appreciate bullying, and not also do not get into groups, such popular groups, which leads to bullying. Now, let's find out what is the motive behind bullying. Why do people do that? Two ways that we've discussed below: exert pressure over others, and also at times people bully because you want to be a part of the powerful group. A powerful group is bullying others, and you want to endorse that power. You end up bullying with others. So, two: first is exerting power over the others. The other is being a part of the powerful group. Now, how we should make sure that we should reduce bullying? First of all, bullying leads to a very negative, a lot of negative personality traits. How? Bullying will reduce your self-esteem. It will reduce your confidence, and a long-standing bullying can lead to depression, anxiety in children. Also, to a later extent, could lead to suicidal attacks and suicidal thoughts and attempts also. So these are one of the most common emotional effects of bullying. So moreover, bullying students who are bullied twice as more suffer from health problems also. So if an individual is suffering from a lot of direct bullying in terms of eve teasing, manipulation in friendships, cyberbullying, also outcasting from the social group, if it gets converted into many folds bullying, remember such children also suffer from physical health problems, which my children might feel have headaches, stomach ache, consistent fevers, and cough and cold that stays, which leads to absenteeism in their academic sphere. So bullied students have poor academic performance also because they lose interest, they do not participate, they don't want to come to school anymore. They suffer, a lot of unexplained injuries, falling down because the confidence is low. They're not able to manage their body also. Also end up doing self-destructive behavior, which is self-harming, also comes into play. So remember, when you're bullying somebody, when you're teasing somebody, when you're taunting somebody, and it's not in a good humor, it's not in a good sense of humor, remember it could lead to anxiety, depression in children. It could lead to suicidal, ways, suicidal thoughts in children. So ways of reducing bullying, we've already done that. There are simple categories for children that we have is: please tell them to become aware, tell them to monitor bullying groups, tell them to make sure that they set boundaries with children, that is setting boundaries in friendship also. If you do not get a support from your friends, please do not provide support. So you are doing what? You're stopping the manipulation of being, in friendship that actually could happen. Then actually deal with technology with care. Make sure to restrict any sort of cyberbullying. Please be very sure of what kind of people you're talking on the internet. If they are strangers, please set your boundaries. So please become aware, realize that it's bullying, take support systems, seek out help, go to student support communities, make sure that you know what is the consequence of bullying. Also, start helping students and their families with the bullying policies, and empower students. If you're not in a part of a bullying group, please empower students who are victims. Make sure that you have a private bully support that fills the child with self-esteem and reduces their reduces their anxiety and takes care of their depression. So these are some simple ways an individual can look up to when they are suffering from bullying. Please become aware that it's bullying. Realize that you are being bullied. Look forward to support groups. Go to teachers, which is your elders, which could help you. Tell them to provide actual punishment to such groups. Create boundaries in friendship, which is, please, it has to be very mutual. Be a part of empowering student, which is let students know that they should never suffer. So empower them with that esteem, empower with them that control. Tell them to become a part of monitoring groups of these bullies that can report bullying activities in a scenario. This will create a lot of self-confidence and will also increase their self-esteem, which will reduce any sort of suicidal thoughts. They feel empowered, they feel responsible. So these are some few ways that we can actually reduce bullying in children. This is a very growing problem in nowadays. Children are bullied for smaller things and in very meek ways, and we don't get to know. So please do not be a part of such bullying activities or such powerful groups to exert pressure on other people. Now, let's move to Unit 6 that talks about group dynamics. This is a whole new different aspect of social psychology which talks about groups, and a very interesting concept. Very, very interesting. concept. So, what is a group? See, group refers to an organized system where there is an interaction of two or more people. So, it's a collection of people which has to be two and more. We have common meaning, common interest and goals. We come in a group to achieve a common motive. Also, group members are very interdependent, which is a lack of somebody can hamper the lack of the other, which is we're very interdependent on one another. Different group members perform different activities. So we do have roles, responsibilities, we do have norms in the group, which gets us together to accomplish a single common task. So as the content says, it's an organized system of two or more people who have common meaning, evaluation of themselves, come together to achieve a common goal. So these are characteristics also, collection of people, organized system of collection of people. It's a social unit, has to be two and more. Common interests, they come down to achieve common motives and goals. They are interdependent, they interact so that we interact with one another. Also, there are norms created in groups, and every member of the group have their own section of performance, which is they have their own identity, which is the group member have a group identity, not individual, because individuals are given roles and norms to complete a group task. Group task leads to group identity, leads to group achievement, and members here are interdependent. Now, why do we want to join groups? There are four needs that we want to complete to join groups. First is affinitive needs. This is, which is accountable for completion of a task project. So there are times that you get into groups to complete a task, to do an activity, and probably you want to do a project of your subject and you create a group for that. So that's an affinitive need. You want to complete something, you all have common motives, and you do that project together and have a name of completion, and you get grades for it. Then we have egoistic needs. These are fulfilled by achievement, enhancing your self esteem. We all know, being a part, why do children want to be part of a group? Why do they want their own gang of friends? The reason is high self-esteem. A collection of people boost one another. We're interdependent, so, and it's a common identity, so it leads to enhancing your self-esteem. You value judge yourself better than the other people. So that is first. Second, that it leads to your even enhancing of your status. Joining group help us achieve two kinds of status: achieve status and ascribe status. Ascribe status are those two statuses which are coming to us with the passage of age and time. So, somebody who is having a lot of experience now becomes the head of the group. And the other is achieve status, which is, you receiving something because you've received a merit and achievement in a project. So you become the project head because you achieved, many accolades in that line of field. So you receive a status which is ascribed, something that you achieved on your own. Then there are functional needs that get achieved, and we want to join group. Functional needs are, groups that come handy to us. Whenever we want to go out, there is one set of friends that we always catch up with, and these groups also help in adjustment. Like in work scenarios, there are some groups that you love to work with because they're very good. They're not your friends, but they come handy when you want to do tasks at work. Also, these functional groups also help you kill boredom. So they help you not get bored. Always, they are always helping groups to you. Then we have cognitive needs. Cognitive needs are, satisfaction of by testing your realities, by coming in consensus with other, which is a like-minded feeling. We join groups because we are like-minded, similarity, proximity, and common motives and goals. So simply at times we just join groups because we are similar in nature. This could be, friends. This could be friends at a conference that you made because it is leading to consensus in the thought that you have regarding that topic or that conference that you went in. So these are cognitive needs that helps when you think better, work better, reason better. So these are the four needs that get satisfied, and that's the reason why do we want to join groups. Now, groups are of many number. There are groups which are formed on the basis of the perceived bond among group members. So there are two kinds in terms of the perceived bond that you make with people. One is common bond group and the other is common identity group. This was given by Lightdale and Prentice and Miller in 1994. It's not that far off. This has been given really close by, which is 1994. So when we talk about perceived bond, There are two kinds: common identity groups and common bond groups. Common bond groups are those groups which are there because of a common cohesive feeling that you have amongst members. So one, that you perceive that you guys are alike, you guys bond better, you are, you gel up really well, and there's high level of cohesiveness amongst you. That's a common bond group. What is a common identity group? When there are common motives, when there are common tasks to be completed. We are not talking about emotional needs in the common identity group. We are talking about the motives, the tasks, the cognitive tasks that you need to complete. So these are common identity groups, which are formed on the basis of perceived bonds on the basis of the bonding that you form with people. Then there's a term that we need to know, which comes in group, which is called the entity. Entity is a feeling of groupness for social units. So that feeling of being a part of the group, it's not in group, it's just the feeling of being part of the group, which is the groupness for social units. This was given by multiple psychologists. You can read it on screen. It was a way for people to categorize the social units they observe. So these are ways that we categorize us and other people so they can participate, or in which they can participate. So let's take an example. There are some children who are very good with communication style, and there are others who are very good with presentation. So the ones who communicate well, are good orators, might consider them as an entity, which is the groupness together. Oh, we all of us can be categorized as one social unit, and these people can be categorized as one separate social unit. So these are other people, and on the other hand, in which they participate feels like member themselves. So people who are good with communication might feel members themselves of the group that they feel we are common. We feel a groupness in it, which is called entity. Not a very common term that we found used that we use during group formation or when we form groups. Now, what are the characteristic of high entity groups? They have common goals, obviously, and they do have frequent interaction among members. These members tend to be very similar to one another. So remember, when you'll have common motives, common goals, and when you'll have a common interest, and when you guys are very similar to one another in terms of personality, in terms of communication style, such groups have very high cohesiveness. They will lead to targets earlier than a group which is lesser in entertainment. Why? If you have lesser entertainment, you will not feel alike your members. You do not feel together with the same members. So let's take an example. I'm just giving an example. We have a friendship which is made out of meeting new people on the first day of interview. There are 5, 6 people who went for an interview and they met there and became friends. Now, they do not have anything which is entity because they do have a common goal. But frequent interaction depends on the number of interviews that they attend together. Also, they do not have similarities. They all are going for different targets to achieve that post in life. So whenever we are going for a group, whenever we're going for an interview and we meet friends over there, it's not entity. It does not give you a feeling of groupness because there is no common achievement of goal. Also, these members are not interacting for a single common motive. They all have their own separate motive. So ideally, they're individual entity, then common entity. Also, people with high entity group characteristics will achieve goals quickly and more swiftly than any other groups that we have. Now, let's come to another topic, which is types of group. We have 3 types of groups that you will find, and when I tell about the types of group, you can start identifying your parents and your offsprings. So your parents in your if for example your parents, your friends, your peers which are at workplace, or peers at your ones that you've made throughout life, or probably friends at the colony and friends at your workplace. So you can all now differentiate these groups of yours. So there are 3 kinds of groupings that we have, which is formal, informal group. We have primary, secondary group, and in group and out group. So let's understand the differentiation types of groups. Types of groups, let's start with primary and secondary as given on the screen. Primary groups are ones which are pre-existing groups. That is something that we are born with, something that are passed on to you. These are family, these are religion, these are caste and customs that you're born with. They are a central of your life. Why? Aren't we not getting values from our families? Are we not getting the moral code and conduct of the society from the family? So they are the central of our life. Now, also when they are central of our life, we need to know that this grouping, primary grouping are not easy to leave. It lacks permeability, which is you cannot sieve yourself out of this group. Tell me any day, have your parents told you, I'll disown you if you don't do this? That never happens. Can you tell your parents, I will leave you and I'll go? We say it out of anger, but we are never devoid of that name. We are never devoid of that family. It is always going to be a part of you. So there is less permeability. Then we have secondary groups. Those are groups that we join out of choice. So, yes, these are groups which are friends. These are groups that you make out of choice. You have your peculiarities to pick up from. You make your groups on your own. In such group and relationships, these are very impersonal. They are indirect, they are lesser frequent than the primary group. So primary group is something that you're living with. So there is an everyday interaction with these grouping. But when we talk about a secondary group does not have a day-to-day interaction. Secondary group is something which you'll find in terms of interacting probably twice a week, probably be even friends. Imagine friends who are for 20 years do not meet every day. They might meet once in 2 months. So less interaction. Also, hypermobility. You can leave this group whenever you want. So don't you feel when your friends do not do good for you, you end up leaving them, you ghosting them, you disconnecting with them. That's possible in the secondary group, but not in the primary group. So these are the difference between the primary and the secondary group. Let's move to the next, which is formal and informal group. Formal groups are one which has a lot of structure. You will find it in your school, organization, and why formal structure? Explicitly stated rules. If you come late, this will happen. If you do not provide, if you leave, if you put up, a lot of times organization have, if you leave, you need to serve notice of 3 months or 2 months. Explicitly and formally stated rules. They have high structured groupings. And also, when we talk about here in this group, the norms are very stringent in nature. Every member have their own specific rules. Whereas when we talk about an informal group, that could be a friend circle also. It could also be a group that you formed at your workplace, which again does not have any sort of rules which is being formulated. Do you formulate rules in your friend group? This is what you need to do. So if I call you at 6 in the evening, you need to call me back at 7. We don't. There are no explicitly stated rules or norms. They are not bounded by any sort of law, which is we do have laws in organization, which makes it structured, categorized, more stringent, explicitly stated norms, right? And roles are very well defined. Now, let's move to the last category of differentiation, which is in group and out group. In group is the feeling of we. When you're a part of a group, you call it an in group. So, individuals who belong together as a part of a group is called the in group, and the people that we consider outside the group are called out group. So, out group refers to another group as a person that you see as a part of the first group. The people of our group are obviously viewed differently. They are perceived a little lower, they are perceived a little lesser in comparison to the in group, which is very common. Don't you feel that your friends are better than the other friend groups that you have? So when you talk about your friends to other people, you always say, I have better friends than you. So that's the in-group feeling, the we feeling that you have, and you consider the other groups, the out group, as the they feeling that you consider them to be, and we do consider them a little negatively, a little inferior also, which is the out group. Okay, so that finishes with the in group and out group differentiation, which finishes all three types: primary, secondary, formal, informal, in group and out group. This completes with the types of groups. Now let's move to some group. Once the group is formed, where once you have a collection of people, common motives and goal, common interests, similarities, what is formed just after groups? There is something which is called a group structure. Group structure is a proper layout, a blueprint of a group. So, what are the characteristics of the group structure? The group structures will have roles, it will have norms, it will have conformity, it will have status and cohesiveness. So, we consider the first four to be the most important part of something which is the group structure. So, remember, a group will not function until it has a structure, and a structure will not keep the group together until it has all these components. So first is the roles, group roles, which is each and every member is being given a designated role and responsibility according to his role. Then there are norms. These are typical standards that are set up by the group, and we collaboratively work on it. At times, norms are very unstated rules. They just become a part of your grouping. Some laws that you unknowingly form and they become a very strong part of your group norms. So that is group norm. Then we have conformity. Conformity is the decisions or stand that we take up as a majority in the group. So like which is like confirming the idea of the group members. So if there are 2 to 3 members who decide that we need to have a dress code for some days, the other 7 agree to it, which is confirmed to them. This is majority, forming a majority. Then we have something which is we call as status, which is the designation provided to the members of the group. We just discussed there are 2 kinds of statuses also, ascribed status and achieved status that we have. So ascribed is something, I'm repeating it again. Ascribed is something that you achieve with the passage of age, time, in being a part of the group for a very long time, also out of experience. 10 years of experience can make you and give you and provide you an ascribed status. In comparison to that, achieved status is something which is achieved on completion of a project, an accolade that you've achieved, like multiple accolades give you, makes you a very meritorious member of the group and you achieve a designation. That's called an achieved status. Then one of the last part, which is very important, without which I feel groups do not function, which is cohesiveness. The extent of belongingness towards each other in group. Highly cohesive group, I feel, tends to achieve their group task earlier. They tend to meet group goals earlier in comparison to an uncohesive group where the members dislike one another. There is no conformity. We have different purposes for one another, and cohesiveness also refers to that we feeling that we belong to this group. We can do a lot for this group. We can, when we are a part of this group, we will do all the goals, we'll complete all the tasks on time. Whereas an uncohesive group will not have this we feeling. They might have individual identity within the group, which could be an obstacle to achievement of goals that we have. So these are group structure, a structure which keeps the group together. Cohesiveness, norms, roles, conformity, and status that we need to provide to our members. So this completes with group structure. Let's move to something which is formation, group formation. Group formation was a concept and the flow of forming group given by Tuckman. Tuckman stated in 1965 that groups are formed in stages. So we pass through stages, to become a group. So initially, what are we? So if you go to a mall, there are hundreds of people around it. That's a crowd. If that crowd gets bifurcated into groups, that will happen in terms of phases. So let's understand it's forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. There are 5 stages. The picture shows 4. I'll tell you why. So the first is the forming stage. This is a stage where we don't know one another. We just come together from the crowd. We've just collected together because we felt that we had similar attitude and similar goals and similar purposes. So in the beginning, the first stage looks like we are all very differentiated. We are just looking towards what can be done. There is a lot of there is no clarity at this moment. People usually are not able to establish a lot of similarities, but by the end of this group, by the end of this group is a time when we start knowing one another. So starting of knowing one another starts. Then after this comes the second stage, which is called the storming. It's like the name. We start storming. There's a lot of conflict because we have started interactions with one another. We realize what is your purpose, what is your status. Do you want to achieve this status in this group? Again, the purpose is not clear, but we are getting to know one another. We are also finding out that we are different from one another. What can be my role? What can be your role? Yes, we do end up fighting for roles, fighting for statuses. That's why this stage is called the storming stage. We are storming, but by the end of this stage, there's a hierarchy that is formed. So we might have an ascribed individual, an individual who is having multiple years of experiences, and because of that, he achieves the status in the group. So there is a hierarchy which is formed at the end of the group, and then we have something which is norming. Norming is finalizing the roles and responsibility. The heads of the group, we have roles, we have commitments, we understand who is doing what and performing what, and now the optimization starts, which is now we start working towards our goal achievement. As norming finish, we come to performing. This is the execution part. We start performing, our strategy starts coming to execution, and usually for a lot of groups this is the last stage because you've started perform like a brand comes together, a music band, and they perform. So that's one of the last stages for a lot of groups. But then, after this, few groups go through a stage which is called adjourning. Adjourning, on the other end, is only very few group goes through this stage which is called adjourning. Here, the group is abandoned after its purpose is achieved. So, a community or a committee of juries coming to investigate a case of corruption. They sit together. Once the case is solved, they abandon, which is they finish, they don't get back together. Whereas when we talked about performing in the last stage for many groups, that means they keep performing, they keep performing, and that keep performing. I'll give you an example. The music band of Singh, Euphoria, that keeps performing. They still are together, they keep performing, they keep performing. So that's the last stage for that group. Most of the groups are performing, performing, performing. Otherwise, there is another stage which is adjourning to few, where the groups just come together to solve a purpose, sit for it, and then they abandon. Like one of the best example is this. When we are coming to solve a case of corruption, a juries of judges sitting for a criminal case and passing the law or passing, their verdict. So that's also something which is adjourning. So there are five stages. A lot of group formation finishes at the four, which is forming, storming, norming, performing being the last. For some, it's even adjourning. So let's move after group formation to group processes. This is one of the most interesting part of groups that you'll realize. You can even see it in your own behaviors now. Group processes will tell you that there are some kind of group activities that we perform differently in front of people and away from people. So the first is facilitation, which is called social facilitation. So what are group processes? Group processes is the change or the impact of imagined or real people on human behavior. So in a group, when you perform, are you going to be different? And when you're devoid of that group, you'll perform different. So social facilitation is one of the first group processes, a tendency of a person to perform better in the presence of an audience or with a co-actor. You might have seen that at times some children perform really well when they see their parents and their family sitting in the group. So that's the presence of audience and presence of their co family members that increases their performance. Why is this facilitation happening? They feel aroused, they feel good. There's a sense of improvement in their performance when they see other people watching them. Another thing, it will impair performance if the performers' dominant responses are incorrect ones and less practiced responses are correct ones. This is given by drive theory, which suggests that, for example, it might impair performances if the performance dominant responses are incorrect ones. So it can also at times in a group facilitation can make you drop your performance when your maximum responses are incorrect and less practiced responses are correct ones. So there are times when you have not practiced at all, and despite the presence of others, when you've not practiced well, but you see people who are of your likability, even less practiced work goes way better. And at times, you are saying the wrong answers and you keep saying wrong answers, keep dominantly performing incorrectly because you see a group which is of your likability. People who increase your arousal because of the likability. So this is social facilitation given by Zanzog, Heimgarten, and Herman in 1969. Then, social facilitation fails to occur if the performance do not pay attention to the persons present there, which is very true. So imagine if you saw an audience which is 100 in number, you get very excited, oh, I'll be able to perform well. But remember, if the audience is not interested in you, they're all on the phones, social facilitation will fail. Also, at times, such distracted audience makes you lose social facilitation. You do not like your tasks. You do not give out that performance with the same vigor. Also, this produces a cognitive overload on the performance and therefore forces the performer to pay attention only in the essential stimuli. So at times, whenever we're coming on stage with a poem, when you come to recite a poem and a child feels no one is watching me, he will rush through the poem. So what are you doing? He's paying attention to just being on stage and saying it out. That's all. The dialect, the beautification of presenting it on stage reduces because your audience is not paying attention. They're distracted. They're over the phone, all of them. So that reduces group facilitation. There is another group phenomena which is called social loafing. This is you realize, whenever we're working in a group, This is something that you can try. I've made my students do that too. And this was a real experiment also. Clap alone. Like, let's take an example. Make three children sit together and tell them clap loudly. They will clap really loudly. Okay. Now tell them to have a group of 20 and clap. They are louder, but the three students that was loudest in the beginning individually alone are not as loud as in the beginning. You realize it why? When we are working in a group, our motivation of individual work reduces. So as the group size increases, individual contribution of members of the group reduces. We try to match the effort of others and reduce our task and reduce our effort and reduce our best. That is called social loafing. This is also seen in one of the best example is tug of war. Tug of war is one of the best example for social loafing. Now let's differentiate between these two group processes that we have. Social facilitation is always an encouragement which is facilitating your performance in the presence of others. Social loafing says that as the number of people increases, less effort will be used by individual members for the goal that is being achieved. That means here the effort gets less. In social facilitation, the effort gets better. It has a positive impact, whereas obviously social loafing is a negative approach. Out of 10, only 5 are working and 5 are not. So the 5 has reduced their efforts. And the last is a person's familiarity of a particular task affects social facilitation. So if you have someone who's very important in your life, you end up doing it very well on stage. But if you feel there's this friend of mine who keeps teasing me all the time and she's here to watch me, it might impact you. So familiarization of the audience might impact social facilitation, whereas factors like expectations of the co-worker of performance, the culture, the meaningfulness of the task might impact social loafing. So if a task is very important and it's considered very important by everybody, social loafing will not happen. If the people know that they are going to be individually evaluated, social loafing will not happen. Why will it? When everyone knows that I'll be evaluated, so I need to give my best. So that's how social loafing is impacted. Now, see a picture of social loafing. Yeah. See, did you realize the first three making so much of effort? And look at the last one, enjoying, standing at the end, holding the rope. That's all. So that's what happens when the number of people increase and you don't know who has reduced their efforts in the group. So that was social loafing. Also, Paris, Harrison, and Gavin in 2006 considered, observed that there are two factors which contribute to social loafing, which is feeling of being obviously dispensable. They feel that their individual contribution will not be counted. They are never evaluated. So that's one reason that they feel it's not important. Second is the feeling of unfairness in the group when there is a lack of cohesiveness. That's why social loafing occurs. Now, if you want to reduce social loafing, what to do? Do the opposite. Increase individual evaluation, make the task very important, increase the importance of the task, increase the commitment by individual members, make sure that you are not indispensable, your work is important to us. Make a standard for performance. This is how social loafing can reduce. Now there's another two terms which is very similar to processes that are happening in a group, which is de-individualization, which is a psychological state. So individuation happen when individuation is characterized by reduced self-awareness and personal identity brought on by external conditions such as being anonymous in a large group. So this is a greater form of obedience. When a crowd is cheerleading, they don't know the motive. They lose their personal identity and they cheerlead for a cricket team. So they all feel alike. So there is a greater obedience in that cheerleading, but you do lose your personal identity in the individualization. Now, this term of greater obedience, lesser anonymity, and higher anonymity and greater obedience can lead to hooliganism also. How hooligans come into play? When this crowd, in special cases of de-individuation, tends to become wild, tends to become very heteronomous, and they become unsocial. They lead to aggressive behavior in in an area. Like, let's take an example, cricketing or soccer matches that we had lastly. Soccer matches were when we were having when people are cheerleading for their own teams. That's called de-individualization. Now, out of that group, there are some people who get aggressive because their teams are losing now. So they were cheerleading, but end up they find, oh my god, my team members are not working hard and we are losing, what do? They start getting wild, they start using curse word, they start abusing the members of the team. That is something which is wild, which is hooligans. This is how de-individualization can also lead to hooligans, which is hooliganism, which is leading to wild, aggressive, antisocial behaviors in a crowd. So this is also a part of social group processes that we find in our society happening around. Now, let's move to group decision making. So, how does group decision making impact us? Group decision making impact us in various ways. We have when a group comes together and decides for anything. You remember there are groups which decide only on the basis of the fact that they like each other. Why? I will go with this decision because I'm very close to my group members. They have not thought about anything. They're not using their mind. And at times there are some group decision making which are just happening because we feel they are like minded like us. So this is two kinds of group decision making which is impacted by many members in the group, which is first the group think. You can see the difference between the images also, and group polarization. So group think happens because of extreme cohesiveness, and group polarization to begin with is decisions taken by the groups are extreme than those taken by the individual. This tendency of a group is a complete shift to a sensible decision to an extreme decision. So the decisions are fine, but they're extremely, at polar ends to a decision which you could have made individually. So group decisions do have group polarization, which is extreme decision making in comparison to something which is individual decisions that we have. Now, coming to group polarization, what are the causes for it? The cause is that to prove themselves worthy and loyal, we want to prove our group members that we are loyal to you. So we hold the same decision line and we feel that you are correct. So we will also go with the same group decisions that you have formed. So an extreme decision because you don't want to be, to be outright from the group. You want to feel loyal. You want to feel a part of the group all the time. Also, the next is the bandwagon effect. Why group polarization happens? Because like-minded ideas get validated, and we feel that it leads to a huger shift as an individual group decision to a extreme group decision. So here, if let's take an example, when we talk about capital punishment, and we ask people that capital punishment to these people should be given or not. When judges sit together, they're like-minded people. So like-minded people are validated by one judge. Their idea gets validated by another 4, 5 judges. That is bandwagon effect. And they move to a decision which is again extreme in nature, according to them because of their knowledge. Now, another kind of group decision making which we talk about is group think. Group think is not happening because like-mindedness. It is not happening because you feel worthy and loyal to one another. That is extremity of groups. This is irrational decision making that takes place because we are highly cohesive amongst one another. We don't know if the group which is deciding right or wrong. We are saying a yes for that decision because we are highly cohesive of that group, which is we are highly bonded to that group. So extreme cohesiveness leads to group cohesion, and like-mindedness leads to group polarization that we have. So group, now coming to the two group decision making that we completed. I'm going back to the picture on the slide. I hope that's clear to everybody. Polarization and group think. Group think happen because of extreme cohesiveness and it leads to irrational decision making. Group polarization is not irrational decision making. It's extreme decision making because of people feeling alike, loyal to one another and worthy of one another in the group. So that is groupthink and group polarization. Now let's come to the last topic of the day of group, which is cooperation and competition. These are two very common phenomena that we keep finding in when we are working together in a group. There are some groups which are highly cooperative, and there are some groups who are very competitive. We end up having a lot of competition amongst themselves. So what is cooperation? Cooperation can be defined as a behavior in which whole group work together to attain a task or a goal. So when members come together to achieve something, that's called cooperation. Competition is a behavior in which individual tries to excel in his own performance. So there are individual identities here, and they're simultaneously hindering other person's tasks. So, I can give you an example for this. Competition simply could be a race amongst 10 children. Obviously, their behavior is they're running as fast as possible and overpowering the other and becoming a hindrance in their task by, taking a lead and running faster. That's competition. Cooperation is when we are doing a medley relay. When we work faster, that run faster will lead to running faster of the next one and further lead running faster of the next one. We have cooperative goals, goals which helps in achievement of a group goal. There are individual goals which are competitive goals, which leads to completion of individual goals. Respective goals. There are no group goals and competitive goals. And what are the determinants of cooperation and competition? So, what is determining cooperation and competition? Reward. At times, reward structures considers group to promote good, collaborative efforts. At times, we give a reward in offices, people start fighting and competing with one another. Then there is interpersonal communication. If you have healthy communication, remember that could lead to cooperation. And if a group has unhealthy communication, it could lead to competition among members. I think a group might end up losing its cohesiveness and they start competing for their own individual goals. So that could lead to competition if you do not have healthy communication. And the last determinant of competition and cooperation is reciprocity. A tendency of returning favors. If a member of the group has shown initial cooperation, you show it. Obviously, you will also show cooperation to them. Competition is equally worse. If initially a person has shown competition to you, you will equally show competition to them. So you fight for them. So reciprocity becomes a cause for competition and cooperation. So does interpersonal communication and so does reward structure. So this was groups today as a unit 8. Group is a very big unit that talks about how groups are formed, the types of group, the stages of group formation, what is group structure that we have, what are decision makings in groups that we consider, and why do we join groups, what are the reasons that we join group, and competition and cooperation in a group. I hope the session was equally enlightening for everybody and facilitated understanding of group processes and group.